John Brown, old John Brown. Um, now, this is a guy who lights a fuse that leads directly to the slaughter of the Civil War. Um, this is remarkable figure. Um, People say that he failed at everything he did. Well, he sure didn't. He may have failed at business because he was so committed to the anti-slave uh, efforts. But I think this picture pretty much captures him. I don't know if he thought of himself as an Old Testament prophet, but boy, he sure was. He had that passion, that zeal, and he was by any means a figure of almost fantastic important, one of the most important figures in all of American history. I don't know, since he was hung, I don't know that he particularly appreciates the idea that he may have been the great, but who knows? Um, he was called by Herman Melville the Meteor of the Civil War. Melville, of course, wrote Moby Dick, he wrote a poem about John Brown, old John Brown. Brown had been an activist for a very long time, and you can see here um, in Kansas and Bleeding Kansas, and there's a video earlier on where we talk about Bleeding Kansas. Brown went there. Pro-slave and anti-slave factions were fighting, bloodshed and arson and God knows what else going on. John Brown rode into a place called Potawatomi, and one night, late at night, and hacked 5 pro-slave men to death, basically in their beds, um, with broadswords or machetes, whatever you want to call them. And that's a pretty strong statement of how you feel about things. Brown and his followers. This indicates where you're going. Brown, it's easy to think of Brown because of this kind of mythology that he was not competent and that he wasn't successful. But Brown belonged to a number of networks of abolitionists. There was no one big abolition network there were, but there were a bunch of small ones, and he knew Frederick Douglass well. In fact, Douglass knew we're going to discuss John Brown's raid on a place called Harper's Ferry. Douglass and he met several times on this, and Douglass told him it was a bad idea. Harriet Tubman, of course. Brown referred to her as General Tubman, and she's not going. In fact, she's going to try to recruit people to help John Brown raid Harper's Ferry. And we'll get into in just a second why you want to raid Harper's Ferry. Then there's John Kagi. Certainly, for all intents and purposes, John Brown's second command, he's going to die in this raid. He's 24 years of age, but he was a very capable guy. He was already editor or assistant editor of 2 newspapers. He procured about 950 pikes for the raid. Pikes are good things to knock people off of horses with, but they're going to be well armed. They're going to have guns, and they're going to have a lot of equipment. And that goes to the fellow here by the name of Garrett Smith. Garrett Smith was had been for one term a representative in Congress. He knew what was going on, and he's going to be slipping John Brown money to set up this enormous raid. So Brown gets into Maryland, not that far from where Harper's Ferry. In those days, it was Harper's Ferry, Virginia, is at. Brown has less than 20 men. And they're going to try to do something to ignite the slaves. And this is Harper's Ferry, Virginia, 1859. This raid is going to be in October of 1859. And the idea was the U.S. had an army there full of guns. And you can see down here in the left-hand side, the rifle works. So their idea was to pass out guns to the slaves. And by the way, John Brown had studied military tactics, had studied how to conduct an insurrection. And his idea was to take these guns, slaves that they could free at that time, and go up into the Appalachians and create like little pockets of freedom. And then slaves would escape and join them up there. And of course, they would be armed. And that from there, they would begin to take over more and more land. You know, it's a logical way of going about things. The fact that it had absolutely no chance of happening, nevertheless, it was logical. So Brown seizes the armory, and then everything goes wrong. And they go wrong. It goes wrong really because Brown, for reasons that escape my understanding, lets people get out of Harper's Ferry. So of course, news, since people can get out, news gets to Washington, and Washington's going to send out the army, which is exactly what they did, under a fellow by the name of Robert E. Lee. Now, he was a colonel at that time. And they're going to bust in to the a bit of a fight. The Brown and his followers isolate themselves in the firehouse, which is made of brick, and they knock out some bricks and shoot through the bricks, through the holes in the bricks. Well, they don't have any hope of success, and they're going to take some significant casualties. Brown is going to lose a couple of his sons. And being a son of John Brown was not exactly a career for advancement, because they tend to end up dead. The army arrives, and a fellow by the name of Jeb Stuart, who will be Lee's cavalry commander in the Civil War. He and his troops bust through the doors of the firehouse, and they capture Brown. They kill a lot of people. As I say, this was not a growth occupation, being with John Brown. Your chance of advancement were slim. And after it was all over, this didn't take very long. John Brown is taken off. Attacking the U.S. Army is an act of treason. And he's going to be tried, and he's going to be executed in early December. You see December 2nd here. And he leaves behind in his jail cell before they take him off to execute him. By the way, he grows a beard. Charleston, Virginia, 2nd December 1859. I, John Brown, am now quite certain that the crimes of this guilty line will never be purged away, but with blood. I had, as I think, vainly flattered myself that without very much bloodshed it might be done. John Brown knew all about bloodshed. He knew perfectly well that if he distributed, say, 5,000 guns to escape slaves, it was going to end up being a bloodbath up and down the Appalachians and on different sides of it, and the slavery communities. So, I don't know whether he believed this or whether this was propaganda. I don't have any idea. But there's no question what the Southerners thought about this. A picture here of John Brown, of course, being executed. This was although in paintings like this, they tend to put a lot of people in them. John Brown this is very, very tight security. Many of the leaders, the thought leaders of the North, people like Nathaniel Hawthorne and Ralph Waldo Emerson, Herman Melville, these folks praised John Brown. One of them said that he would make the gallows as glorious as the cross. You can imagine, if you're a Southerner, how you felt about all of this. And so the Southerners, realizing that Northerners were praising this guy who intended to kill them in their beds. The Southern militias, in those days, there were actually a couple of militia acts which required each town or each unit, municipality, county, what have you, to have a militia, which was just a joke. I mean, they didn't, if they met at all, it was to have a beer. Now suddenly, with the prospect of the North praising people who intend to kill Southerners, suddenly these militias get organized. They actually learn how to use their guns, and they actually learn how to, march in line and how to move. Are these guys professional soldiers? No, but you've got a lot of militias. I mean, you've got a lot of militias training in the South, and they're going to. When the war begins, the Southern Army is going to have in it a large number of these militias, and I mean a large number. In fact, in the first big battle of First Manassas or First Bull Run, Stonewall Jackson, using Lexington, Virginia militia, is going to break the momentum of the Northern Army, and the Southern Army is going to win. This was a well-trained militia, and they knew what they were doing, and by God, they did it. And it indicates just what John Brown did. But after this, the Southerners say, if we stay in the Union, they're going to kill us. And or at least a lot of them are going to say that. And so as a result, old John Brown, he sets it off. Now the South feels that they have almost no chance. Okay. Well, gang, everybody out there, stay calm, stay safe, and above all, stay healthy. And hopefully we'll all see each other sometime in the future. Take care.